going to learn stuff, if you're going to get wisdom, then you have to be able to hate your friends and love your enemies. Because your friends have wisdom, this is true, so do your enemies. And if you're going to limit yourself by this and just say, I'm only going to learn from people who entertain me, I'm only going to learn from people who I like, and now you have a very small scope of who you can learn from. And you're missing the whole world that's out there. In fact, you're probably missing the fact that you're the one who's closed-minded, while at the same time that we're accusing everybody else of being this way. Put lotion on, so I'm going to be on video looking like an evil supervillain. So you can't discuss the ocean with a well frog. Now, we have this tendency to I don't know, we just have this negative tendency in life, a lot of us. And I kind of know where it comes from, right? And I get it, I understand why we have it. But there's this idea that like, people just don't want to know, or people just don't want to grow, or people just, I don't know if this is the case. I think that a lot of times it has to do with the possibilities that you're even aware of. And as Xavier said very wisely, you don't know what you don't know. And so if you don't know that there's something else out there, how could you possibly ever strive for it? When we talk about the kinds of people like throughout history who you might want to meet, I want to meet the people who initially crossed the Sahara Desert. Because if life is forming in Central and Southern Africa, I want to meet the people who looked out across this desert and said, I'm going to go that way. Because nobody in the history of the species in the world had ever done that before. It wasn't like, we could look at something like going to the moon. We could say we could see the moon. We have a concept of rockets, and so there's a good reason to believe that if we make a rocket strong enough, we can get to that place right there. Instead, you've got people who nobody has ever crossed this one vast area of land. And certainly if they ever have, they've never come back to talk about it. And so they stand out there and they just kind of go, it's all desert. I'm going to go that way. How much water are you going to take? I don't know. They take as much as they can, I suppose, because they just don't know that there's anything else out there. So to be able to look out across something like that and just kind of imagine, I bet there's something else out there. And not just like I think, but someone who's willing to bet their life on it. Because if it's too vast, or if there's nothing else out there, or if it's just the edge of the world, or if there are monsters out there, you're not coming back. So whatever life they're living is probably pretty okay as far as their standards are, because again, they don't know anything other than what they're living in right now. So it wasn't like their existence was so horrible that they were just like, I've got to go past that here. I have to go look for something else. Instead, they just stood there and they looked out across this vast desert and said, I wonder. And I'm willing to bet my life on that wonder, to go out and cross it. And then they did, of course, and then they didn't come back. And then some other people were like, I wonder what else is out there. And they had the same kind of dilemma. And then they went out. And I don't know if anybody ever came back from there and said, yeah, listen, it takes what we would call months to get across it, but you can do it. Now let's get a whole bunch of people and let's just go. And even if they did do that, you had to have people who sat there and said, okay, I believe you. I trust you on this. Let's go do this. So you had to have, first off, a sense that something was even possible. You had to have a sense that there was something out there. And then to come back and take other people across, you had to have a sense that there was trust enough, that there really was something out there. These people were telling you the truth about it, and that you could actually get there. There's a lot going on there. And we miss the simple, mundane parts of life a lot of times because to us it's just common sense. What's out beyond the Sahara Desert? Well, the whole world is out there. But if you've never experienced it before, you have no reason to believe it's out there. And you have no reason to believe that you could actually make a life out there. What I'm saying is that it wasn't that they were necessarily closed-minded, or it wasn't necessarily that certainly wasn't that they were stupid. It was just they didn't know what they didn't know. And they were willing to bet their lives on it. So it takes courage to leash out past that. The well frog doesn't really have a reason to believe that there's a world out beyond the well that it lives in. Why would it? No frog has ever come back and said, hey, there's a whole world out here. Now, once in a while, they might get a glimpse of it. Like, they might see a bird fly by, maybe. They'd have to know what the bird is to even know that, that there's something else out there. And then even then they'd have to think, well, maybe the world out there is good for the bird. I'm not sure about me because my life is pretty okay here in this well. Because again, they're judging their present life by the life of other frogs around them and then themselves. So they have to believe that there's something else out there. And it's not that they're stupid. It's not that they reject the idea of growth. They just don't know any better. No one's come back to tell them about it. Again, this is the value of the hero. This is what the hero's journey is, to go out, experience something, overcome it, and then come back and tell everybody else what's possible. And this is one of the reasons that the hero has to have credibility. The hero has to have a high moral character, because we have to be able to trust what the hero is telling us. The hero isn't, he's not going to come back and slay a frog, and then come back and say, there was this huge dragon, and I overcame it. No, we have to be able to trust what the hero is telling us. And we have to be able to believe also, by the way. And another thing that the hero is going to do is the hero is going to make us feel like we're capable of going out there and doing what they did, and surviving the world that they survived. So the whale frog, just like us, has to have some trust in the people who are coming back and telling them these things. It's one of the reasons that, like your teacher's ethos, credibility, is so important. You have to have trust in a teacher. If you don't, well, you have no reason to trust that what they're telling you is something that you're going to need. You have no reason to trust that what they're telling you is something that you're going to be able to use someday. So these things are important. And I would suggest to you, anyway, that the teachers from whom you learn the most are the teachers who you like the most. It's difficult to learn from someone we don't like, because we naturally don't want to trust them. Now, it's not that they're necessarily not trustworthy. It's not that they don't know a lot of stuff. It's just that we don't like them. So we try to find a reason not to give them any credit. Oh, they must be a liar. They must be a hypocrite. They're so boring, as though the job here is to entertain in some way. But instead, develop the credibility. Have trust in them. And so what I'm saying is that you can expand your trust, not just to people you like, but if you're going to learn stuff, if you're going to get wisdom, then you have to be able to hate your friends and love your enemies. Because your friends have wisdom, this is true, so do your enemies. And if you're going to limit yourself by this and just say, I'm only going to learn from people who entertain me, and I'm only going to learn from people who entertain me, and I'm only going to learn from people who I like, well, now you have a very small scope of who you can learn from. And you're missing the whole world that's out there. In fact, you're probably missing the fact that you're the one who's closed-minded, while at the same time that we're accusing everybody else of being this way. And ultimately, the problem with this is not a matter of your character. The problem with this is it's a matter of your capabilities after that, because you're losing a lot of opportunities to grow. And is it harming the teacher? Is it harming the person who you don't like, your enemy? Not in the least. It's only harming you. It's only harming you. So I guess you could treat a class, a job, a neighbor, the way that the Vikings treated Newfoundland. Sleep in, get what you need out of it, and leave. Or you can just pretend like it's not there. What's that?
There's an anime about that.
An anime?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Damn.
I don't know. I don't watch anime.
They can really explore these concepts.
I imagine so. I've heard that they have some deep ideas in them. It's just,
Oh, yeah.
it's just nothing I think I delve into. But it's important for us to realize that he's limited by the space he lives in. And again, it takes courage. It takes two things, courage and imagination, to leave that well. I know that where I grew up, for example, I grew up not far from the beach. I grew up like what, 6 or 7 miles from the beach. And there were only a couple of us in my neighborhood who ever went to the beach, had ever been there before. Why didn't we go there? Because we stayed in the neighborhood. When people would if we graduated from high school, and then we'd come back, and where would we live? We'd live in the neighborhood. People tended to stay very close to this. Some of you are maybe struggling with this right now. Maybe you were accepted to a university like in New York somewhere, or some other state, but you were also accepted to SDSU or something like that. And you have parents and family who are telling you, no, just stay here, stay at home. And you might be like, yeah, I should just stay at home. Guess what?
You don't know when you don't know.
Yeah, you're a well frog. You're a well frog. Oh, but it just makes sense. Because I can save money on rent. I can still eat at home. The well frog has good reasons for believing that they shouldn't leave the well also. And then, by the way, I'm not saying that this is a bad decision. I'm not saying it's a wrong decision. I'm only saying we should call things by their proper names. At least then you won't be surprised later on in life. At least you're aware of the decision that you're making. And the decision that you're making is to stay in the well. Now again, the university you get accepted to here might be better suited than the one you get accepted to in Florida or whatever. But understand that you're also not going to grow in quite the same way, because you're just going to be a more advanced version of what you presently are. Because it's like going to any of the local community colleges. There's one in particular, down in Chula Vista, we all know which one, Southwestern. It's a good place. I teach there. It's not a terrible place at all. But the danger you might run into is you might run into the same people you run into here. And this is why it starts to feel like grade 13 from Sweetwater. It's not that it is, but it's just that you walk into the first day of class and you're like, okay, college, I'm going to do this, and you look around and you see like 5 or 6 of the same people you went to school with. It changes how you feel about things. It changes your mindset. It can affect how seriously you take things. And so I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but City College is there, so is Grossmont. So are other places, and you have to travel a little bit to encounter whole new people. Or you can be the well frog. You can't discuss ice with a summer insect, by the way. It's not the summer insect's fault. It's not his fault. He only has a life he has a very small lifespan. He only lives to be a single season. So you can't pour everything that you want to into people's heads, as much as I really wish I could pour stuff into your heads. And as advanced sometimes as the concepts might seem, as hard as material might seem that I give you guys sometimes, it's the tip of the iceberg, man. We could be going way deeper in this class. We could be handling much harder subjects in here. It's true, and they're out there. And some of you I know will go on, and you'll long for those things, and you'll grasp them. You'll get there. But I simply can't pour certain things into your heads, because there are things that you have to have a good deal of life experience to understand. And it's not that you're stupid. It's not that you're damn kids. It's nothing like that. It's just you can't quite understand it yet. There are things in your lives that I just can't understand. It's not that I'm stupid. It's other things. But it's that I just simply can't connect to it because I haven't been there. And so this is one of the things about communication. You try to bridge that gap and let me know the things that you go through and explain it in such a way that I can start to understand it. Maybe take analogies from my life to connect to your life like I try to do with these. And then that way we can kind of build a bridge and understand it a bit better. And that's the purpose of communication and language, to bring us together. Unfortunately, there are lots of people who use communication to tear us apart, to make fun of each other, to anger people, to troll, to make the world a worse place. Communication shouldn't be used for that. That stuff's easy. It's easy to destroy. You've ever seen Michelangelo's David statue? Yeah, you should go see it.
Again?
It's in Florence. Yeah, when you go there, it's like the Eiffel Tower. When you go see the statue of David, you're like, it's a statue, whatever. But when you go there and you're looking at it, you realize this is so much more than just a statue. I can't explain it to you. You have to go see it.
How much is the ticket?
You could probably fly the round trip for $800.
All right.
Seriously, but do the math on that, man. $800 to fly to the other side of the world and back in one day. I'm not saying you go there for one day, but one day over there, one day back. Well, 12 hours and 12 hours roughly. And then you could stay at a hostel for like $40 a night, probably. Start doing the math on that, man. You could go to Italy. You could spend a couple weeks there for a couple $1,000s. Like, oh, but that's a couple $1,000s. What are you buying otherwise? That's a life experience, man. That's something that you can go there, come back, and talk about. Tell me if that sounds familiar from the beginning of this talk. It's something that you could go somewhere, experience it, come back, and tell people about it, and let them know it's possible. Wait, someone from our school went to Italy for a few weeks? Yeah, lots of, yeah. So it's possible. One of the greatest things I ever learned in my life was meeting somebody in my neighborhood and finding out that there were things that were possible from people from my neighborhood. I was like, we can do that. Interesting. Not that obviously you have people who told you that we couldn't because they never had. So it was not with that attitude, of course, we can't do it. But there's so much that's possible out there. One time I was walking around out in the desert somewhere, and I saw this thing. It had the head of a man with the body of a lion, and it was kind of like emerging from this sand, right in front of a bunch of pyramids. You should go see it. It's fucking incredible, man. It's fucking incredible. When you stand in the shadow of those pyramids, you start to understand so much more about life. I went to a cave one time in Vietnam. The cave itself is so big, it has its own ecosystem. It has its own weather system inside the cave.
Oh.
It could be sunny outside. Inside the cave, it's raining. How do you have rain inside of a cave? It's unbelievable. They have their own life forms in there. You can walk around there. You should go see it sometime. It's like the Eiffel Tower. You see pictures of it, and you're just like, it's a bunch of iron that's been welded together. No, dude. No. There's a reason that people stand in awe of these things. And it's because they experienced it. They didn't see a picture of it. They encountered it in real life. And you should go see it. You should go see it. I don't understand how it is that in southern Mexico we've got the same type of building structures as I described having seen out in the desert in Egypt. But they're amazing. And if you haven't seen them, you too should go see them. And you can do all of what I just described for less than a car payment. You know? It's possible. It's possible. If you don't think so, maybe jump outside the well and see what's available to you. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques?